Hi, I'm Jennifer Zundel, and I'm certified Calling in the One coach, supporting singles to release the hidden inner obstacles that have been keeping love away so that you can transform your love life and manifest your soulmate. And I'm here with Laura, and she has been working with me through the Calling in the One program to support her to transform her experience in romantic relationships. And so I'm really excited that you have joined me today, Laura. Thank you for being here with me.
Of
And I,
course, happy to be
yeah,
here.
great. And I wanted to start by asking you if you could share with me what your experience was in relationships before you started the coaching program with me.
Sure thing. One of the things I had, when we first had met, one of the things I came to you and said was that I was frustrated in that the men I was dating I found were not available or not available to me, in my relationships or as I was exploring relationships with people. And so one of the things that we uncovered through our time together is that you often reap what you sow. And so it wasn't just, part of why I was attracting people who are men that were not available is because myself, I wasn't showing up available or engaging in that emotional way in the relationships I was
Absolutely, right. Yeah, we need to be available ourselves in order to attract available people. Wow. And I'm sure that there are so many people that can relate to this experience. We always hear, why are all the men that I meet unavailable? And your iPad went off for a minute. You're back. Great.
having. I'm back.
You're back. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's fine. So, there are so many people that talk about attracting unavailable partners, and they're like, where are all the available ones?
Mm-hmm.
How do I meet them? Where are all the good ones? And we start to realize that, wow, our patterns are actually happening through us. And how are we generating those experiences? So we've been talking about that. So I'm curious if you can share with me what inspired you to do the Calling in the One program with me. Why did you make that choice?
I think a part of it is just, it was that, what else could it be? I was frustrated with the outcomes I was having. I think I, for a long time, used other events that were in my life. I was, very focused on my career. I was in grad school and finishing school. And so I had a lot of other things and, in a way, isolated myself from putting myself out there because of all those other priorities. And then when a lot of that got resolved and quieted down a little bit, the other piece hadn't changed. I still wasn't meeting, people or meeting men that I thought were available or getting a different result. And it was, for me, it was time to take action. I wanted
Right.
to make a change to that.
Right. And, again, I think a lot of people can relate to that they want love, and yet they're focusing on other areas of their life, like building their career or getting through school. And then they think someday when things change and I have more time, then I'll be able to, get on an online dating site, for example, or then I'll be able to have time to invest in that. And then maybe a lot of time has gone by and they're like, wow, I didn't realize that I would be this age at this point and still not be with someone. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they realize that, like you're saying, that you finally had the time, but yet things weren't changing in your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people experience that too. And then it's confusing, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's you don't want to look at yourself and say, hey, it can't be me. You want to say, hey, it's the men I'm meeting aren't available, or I'm not going to the right places, or
yes.
I'm not doing the right, I'm not I'm just not me. I didn't put myself out there, and so that's why I
Right.
haven't met anybody. But when you take all of those answers, when you take those excuses away, you're kind of looking at the face in the mirror and you're like, it can't be me.
Well,
Like, it's
that
not
is
me
the
who's
common
not,
denominator here, right?
right. So I think that was, that's always
Yeah,
a piece of the puzzle that's sometimes hard to face. And it was certainly
totally.
was a little it was eye-opening for me.
Totally. Right. I mean, it's so much easier to say there are no good men out there. It's so much
Mm-hmm.
easier to say I live in the wrong city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many people that I hear that say, oh, I just live in a place that's in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Online dating doesn't work for me. They come up with all these excuses, and it's hard to actually look at ourselves.
Right, right. Or I live in the suburbs. Everybody like who I live
Yeah.
around are all married with kids. So
Yeah. We
there's
come
not
up
the
with
pool.
all these
Yeah.
excuses. We come up with all these excuses why it won't work for us. When really, if we just look inwards to do our inner work, it can all transform pretty easily.
Mhm.
So I want to share here that you and I actually haven't even finished the program yet. We still have
No, we have
like
one more week.
one more week, right? So I want to say, like, we're still in it. Like you've already experienced some shifts in your life, and we
Mm-hmm.
haven't even yet finished. And so I
Mm-hmm.
want to ask you, what are things like in your relationships now? Where are you at?
Well, I'm still single. I think, one of the things or a couple of the things that you and I've really talked about and that's been really eye-opening is just how a lot of the material, while yes, the focus is on attracting love, a lot of the material and a lot of the, topics that we've explored have tied into other relationships that I have, whether
Mhm,
it's relationships, my friendships, relationships with family members,
mhm.
just how I show up, in the workplace and how it's impact, sometimes how you can't just put like your love life in or your love um that piece in a bucket and say, well, I'm fixed that, and everything else is still fine. But just how a lot of things have, that have crossed over a lot of other, areas of my life. And so I've been able to use the skills there and really encompass that into who I am. And so I
Yeah,
think that's going to really help me as it starts to now manifest
absolutely.
myself out there for
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah, because these are all relationships, whether it's work
Hmm.
relationships, family relationship, friend relationship, or your romantic relationship, they're all relationships. And so that's one of the things we've been talking about is using all your relationships as practice, right? So that
Yes,
then you're able to build up the skills, practicing and create great relationships with everybody, which who doesn't want that, right?
exactly.
And then you're ready when this person shows up.
Yes.
Yeah. So, how did our coaching support you to feel more comfortable in these other relationships?
Well, I think it's helped me realize how I show up, or when something happens, how I react and
Mm-hmm.
why I react the way I do, which isn't always the best course of way or the best way to react on something. And
Mm-hmm.
it's made me much more deliberate in, thinking about how I do show up and not necessarily thinking about, well, so and so acted this way towards me because of them. It's how did I show up or how am I engaging that had them react to me that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's been a really big one. I think too, just being much more self-aware of how I do show up or what those triggers are and what cause, what we call them, those false stories,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
how those play into things that you're not even, things I was never even conscious of or would have never thought were tying in, and
Yeah.
the role that they play in such a subconscious way, in
Yeah.
the way I interact with people.
Right. Right. That all makes so much sense. That you're more aware now and how what you're contributing to the dynamics between yourself and others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the ways that we all get triggered by things, and being aware of the stories that we're playing out about that and what that might generate going forwards.
Right, and how to change that story. Like, while it
Mhm.
may say, your brain may want to say one thing, but how do you stop that story and then kind of reset yourself to
Yeah.
what reality is and what the truth really is? How do you kind of pull yourself back to where that is and not let that that false story kind of
Yeah.
run the show.
Yeah. So basically, we've been talking about building some skills and practices during the program that you're able to use in these situations that you're talking about to help you kind of see where you're triggered and then choose, because now you have a choice,
Right. Because
right?
you're aware of it.
You're aware of it. Now you have a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you might share one or two specific breakthroughs that you've had as a result of coaching with me.
Well, I think one, kind of ties back to the unavailability or the vulnerability is that, I've always prided myself or in a way bragged about being as independent as I am. And, just being able to, I think one of the breakthroughs is being able to ask for help. And in asking for help, it doesn't make me a burden on somebody or, weak. That's a way to build a relationship with somebody, just even if it's a neighbor.
Right.
By asking, people naturally want to help you. They just need to know how. So I think that was a really big one.
Yeah. Authentically connecting with others.
Yeah. And then I think the other one is that exact, that authentic connection and just being aware of, the questions I ask people, if you're in the grocery store or if you're in the elevator or the security guard in my office every morning, instead of just a hi, how are you? And you just kind of keep walking. But, taking the time to sit down or taking the time to stop and, making an observation on something that, you see and engaging in that conversation. And then when you see the person again, and oftentimes, especially in the grocery store, you typically see the same, produce workers, or depending on your schedule, you might even see the same people in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You kind of have that way that you can just ask a quick follow-up question. And it doesn't mean you're getting a whole life story.
Yeah.
But you're making that connection.
And how are people responding to you differently than they would have in the past?
I think it is people want to engage. Again, it's that, you don't get the hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. You go on your merry way. But, you have that people like to share their interests, and then they often will reciprocate that. And they're going to ask you something that's, a more authentic piece to share with them.
Right. I think this is okay to share. I didn't ask you in advance, but I remember in one of our coaching sessions that on this topic, you were talking about connecting with people, and you said that you really like seeing their face light up when you're actually showing interest in them and connecting with them, right?
Yes.
That sounds like it's a very different experience than you had before.
Oh, absolutely. Because you can feel it. You can see it in their face. You can feel it in, you hear it in the tone of their voice on how it's just different than, hi, how are you? Or did you have a good weekend? Yep. How was yours? It's very robotic or, like just, one kind of that one level where now it's, you can see somebody get excited to talk about, hey, what was the best part of your weekend? Or Labor Day weekends around the corner, what's something you're really looking forward to doing? And it just, you're getting it's the same topic, you're same or the same baseline of a topic, but it's just, you're asking a much more engaging question than, do you have plans for the weekend? Or, are you looking forward to the weekend?
Yeah. That's great. Exciting, right? That I mean, doesn't it feel more alive? Like,
it does.
Like you're more alive in your life.
Yeah. And I feel like the people who are around me are more alive. Like, you don't feel
amazing.
Like everybody's just robots.
That's amazing. Like your life has more life in it,
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering how, along those lines, I'm wondering how you might be feeling different about yourself since doing the program.
I think I'm certainly willing to put myself out there more, and to be more vulnerable, have those conversations, share that information about myself where I wasn't as voluntarily sharing, or wouldn't share with somebody, that I didn't know something. I think even, as we talked about, being vulnerable and being more aware of, okay, asking for help, or, when something happens, being aware of, okay, that's going to trigger a reaction, but how am I going to, what do I know? What do I know is the truth? And then how am I now going to show up differently so that I get a different response?
So I'm hearing you're saying that some of the practices that we have developed together have provided you some tools, basically, so that you're able to go out and know, I'm going to open myself up and share vulnerably, knowing at the same time that I can create my own safety to do that, and I can manage any reactions that I might have so that I'm going to be okay, and I can trust other people, I can trust myself to figure this out and to connect with people. That we've actually been building these skills and practices that will allow you to do that in a way that, sure, it might step out of your comfort zone, but as you do it more, it becomes more natural. We're feeling, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. So are there other areas of your life that have been positively influenced for the better as a result of our coaching, aside from your romantic relationships, or
Yeah, so certainly my relationships at work, I work for a company that was recently acquired. And so, establishing new relationships with my new partners in business and being able to use those skills to help build those relationships has been, really, really valuable.
So again, another question I didn't ask, if I could ask this before. I'm just throwing stuff at you. Anyone listening, by the way, I'm just throwing stuff at her. She didn't prepare. Isn't she doing great? So, have you been dating since we did have you had any dates? How does that go if you have?
Yep. No, I've had some dates. I think I've certainly been able to put into practice the skills. They have not all gone successfully.
You're dating. That's what dating is.
Exactly. But it's been good because I think also I've been able to identify, even with other people men that I'm meeting, those, I don't want to use the word necessarily red flags, but the patterns that would lead them to be, okay, I'm working on how I'm showing up, and how is that, reaction. And if it's not where I feel that there's a authentic connection, or that it's we both have a similar, sharing what I'm looking for. And if that's not what they're looking for, then, really staying committed to what my goal is.
Yes. So I'm hearing that you are seeing sooner if someone might be unavailable, like truly unavailable, and saying, if I'm showing up available and they're not responding to that, that means they're not good for me. They're not a good fit for me. So you're seeing sooner that someone's not a good fit for you. And it sounds like you're also just showing up like willing to practice and see, connect with people.
Yep.
And people
and men that I maybe wouldn't have been interested in going on a date with before, I'm just using it as a practice to, hey, this may not go, it may not go anywhere, but it's a great place. It's a great opportunity for me to, put into play and put into practice, because they don't know I'm practicing. They don't know.
You're just dating. You're just
right. So it's in a weird way, it's a safe space.
It is a safe space. It is. Like you're creating your own safety to go out and date and try new ways of showing up and new things. That's great. So I'm curious what you would have to say to someone who's considering coaching with me, but they might have some hesitations. What might you say to that person?
Well, I think you have to look in the mirror, and you really do have to look at yourself and say, you know what, there's always going to be things going on. There's going to be work. There may be family. There may be children. But you do need to take that time to invest in yourself. It's something that it is an investment in yourself, and an investment in what your future is going to be, because if you're not with the right person now, you may not change that if without kind of identifying what those areas are. And so it is an investment. But but I think it was I feel confident that it was a good investment, and it's certainly been very eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very telling for myself, but it's also been really rewarding to, look back as I review some of our notes from our earlier conversations, and to kind of see how our conversations have evolved, and how my thought process and my approach and on how I show up has evolved, has been rewarding, and even just the short time that we've been working together.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for, allowing me to support you and allowing me to show up and be on your team in this way. It's really been an honor for me. And thank you for showing up here to allow other people an insight into what you've been able to do and experience in the coaching. So is
Of
there
course,
any
happy to do so.
Yeah, thank you. So those are all the questions that I have for you. And is there anything else that you wanted to share before we finish up?
I don't think so. I mean, this is,
Okay.
it's a little awkward being on video, so hopefully your viewers found it. It's not nearly this awkward when you're talking to Jennifer in a one-on-one session as it is when you're on video. It's much more comfortable.
Much more comfortable, right? When you don't think that the world is watching you.
Exactly.
Gotcha. I agree. I feel the same way. Anyone, everyone watching this. But I do it. I will just say I do it because I know how profound I can transform people's lives. And that is worth more than any discomfort I might feel. I'm just willing to go out and make myself uncomfortable because I know how much I can support people. So thank you, Laura, for being with me.
Well, we
And
appreciate that.
yeah, all right. So we're
Okay.
signing off for now. Thank you. Bye-bye.